James is just having some grilled vegetables, potatoes with pizza sauce, and kale. And I'm going to be talking about volcanoes of the deep sea. And then below that, The Big Short, Cafe Society, The Secret, and Dare to Dream, or something like that, I think it's called. Yep. Ancient female rulers, women who ruled the world 3,500 years ago. Prehistoric road trip, Sputnik, and the University of it all. And
you rated that one about Egyptian rulers kind of in the middle, did you?
I expected it was going to be a lot better than it was, and I was greatly disappointed. I don't know how you felt about it, but I mean,
you rated stuff worse than it's bad. That stuff is bad.
Yeah, because honestly, well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it eventually. But, and I'll tell you why I didn't care for it. So, Volcanoes of the Deep Sea, though, wow, was that ever entertaining? It was great. And this was only 45 minutes, packed full of a lot of information and beauty of the natural world. And the little Dumbo, what was he? I don't know what he was, an octopus? Well, they didn't say, they just called him Dumbo.
Dumbo, okay.
Yeah, he had little fins sitting on his head. I don't know.
Kind of like the Blue Jay too when they're excited.
Yeah, anyway, he was sweet. But it was beautiful, looking at the volcano stuff and all the life under the sea. But, I mean, I'm watching this thing, and I'm looking at the honeycomb pattern, and I can't remember what he said it was called. Anyway, it's not on here anyway. I didn't write it down. But he said it was some sort of life form he was looking for. And the main scientist that you're following along through the 45-minute DVD, he starts out and he says, well, I was on my honeymoon here, I think it was Hawaii, right? With my wife, and I fell in love with another mistress, and it was this fossil, right? Of this life form that I guess I gathered they say was here before the dinosaurs, and it's still here, but they don't know what it is, and it creates this honeycomb-looking pattern. So he says that it's some sort of a little thing that tunnels, and to create these perfect hexagonal looking things. And I'm looking at them. So I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, well, it looks like a honeycomb, like a bee. So why do they necessarily think that it's a little critter that's tunneling to make this shape? It could be whatever. It could be something else. I mean, bees don't tunnel to make their honeycomb things. But so what is it, right? And so I'm looking at this thing, and they're they find it under the sea, this pattern, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's still alive down there, whatever it is, right? And so they're taking samples, they bring it back up, and they cut. No insect, or whatever they're looking for, no critters, right? They can't find it, and they keep slicing in these samples, they can't find it. And while I'm watching this, as much as I don't want to offend anybody by saying this, but there's a saying about doing something the same way repeatedly and expecting different results.
Well, that was someone's definition
Yeah.
of insanity.
So, anyway, so then they show these lots and lots of samples. They just have samples, cores just piled up like logs there. And it's like, okay, what are you doing, man? So how much money, resources, everything are they, and not even counting how much of this natural thing that this guy says he loves, he's in love with this thing, but how much of that is he wasting to try to feed his ego of trying to solve this mystery for himself? Like, kind of ridiculous, right? So anyway, I guess listening to me now, you probably understand I I don't think much of archaeologists. I really, really don't. They're just, as far as I can see, they're still just too rigged. And it disgusts me to think about what they're doing to the natural world just to feed their egos. Anyway, so I'm watching this guy, and I'm thinking, you know, you haven't found a critter in there. You've been slicing. Maybe think outside your tiny little box that you're working with, because this isn't working. Stop killing so much or whatever of this critter. Stop destroying what you say you love. Try to think up something else. You don't have to be going down there getting more samples just to try to figure things out. Sometimes you can look at what you already have and think differently when you look at it. And that might work better for you. So anyway, I did love this though. I'm really glad to have watched it. And that got top of the stack, for sure. And it's a big stack that you're seeing here. So I found it interesting because we were just talking yesterday about there was a horror movie I'd watched where the woman wanted to be study this sort of thing. So I found it interesting. So just the fact that at the same time, you know, for some reason I'm picking out these things that are related, right? But this isn't. It's not related. So the big short, this one got second in the stack. It's an important thing to know about and try to figure out what went wrong. Mm-hmm. It's about mortgage bubble explosion that happened in the United States, and that affected the economies of the world. Anyway, so
Still is affecting the social and political system. The 2008 was talking what led up to
mm-hmm. And of course the character that I find most interesting is, well, it's two characters. It's the one that Brad Pitt plays and the one that Steve Carell plays. So there's two characters. But with Brad Pitt's character, I can obviously relate more to him because he's really big into seed saving, and he's gotten out of the whole investment. He's gotten out of Wall Street. He wants nothing to do with it, and these guys pull him back into it for a little while. But I mean, they would have made a lot of money doing so. But anyway, I find him most interesting because I think like him. So, but Steve Carell's character is interesting too. I don't think like him, but I can appreciate people that do. So, anyway, I like the way that they tried to make it seem like a reality show in a way. The way they're filming it, and because this is reality, people need to realize that. So I like that they got Steve Carell involved because that's how they shot The Office, and so it works that way too, right? Anyway, I don't know if James is going to want to talk to this. I liked a couple of the quotes. There was one, sometimes in this movie they have little things written, like in between scenes they have a little saying or something like that. And one was one that they put down was, truth is like poetry, and most people effing hate poetry. I thought that was good. So, and then there was another thing that I can't remember his name, but the Brad Pitt character said every 1% unemployment goes up, 40,000 people die. And I think that's interesting too. it says that Michael Burry, that's the character that was played by Kristen Bale in this, knew about this mortgage bubble before everyone else. The government didn't want to know when he offered to keep them. Instead, the government audited him 4 times, and then he was questioned by the FBI. So, after this, his investment focus is water, entirely. And that's what a lot of people say. They say that the next major world wars are going to be fought over water, because people need fresh water. So,
and
more people. Yeah. So, now one thing that I wanted to say about this is when we watch this, we get that little blurb at the end about, okay, so the first person who figured this out seems to be this Michael Burry character. He seemed to figure out that the housing in the United States was going to, like, with mortgage problems, was going to cause a great big crash. So, anyway, and he was the first one, as presented in this, that went to the bank to sort this system of, like, CDOs and stuff. Right? Oh, and I should say that at the end of the show, they say that they have basically rebranded. The banks have rebranded the CDO under a different name, and they're selling them again. So you can expect the same sort of result, really.
That's a punchline.
Yeah.
In a comedy, but it's going to be a tragic comedy.
Exactly. So I should tell you that, because that's right at the end they show you that, and you're like, oh my God. Right? So anyway. Now this Michael Burry character went to the bank and he said, I want to buy basically something so that if this system goes kaput, I make lots of money. So he's going to buy I'm not good at speaking. So it's a kind of, he's betting against the system, essentially, right? So
you get rewarded for betting against the system if the system goes kaput.
Yeah. So the banks are like, yeah, we'll take your money, because they're saying, well, housing is so solid, but the mortgage thing, what are you gonna? People pay their mortgages. They're like, why would you bet against it? You know. So they're taking this money. Now, I'm watching this though, and I'm going, well, the banks are in the business of selling. They get people to invest their money into the bank, and then they sell off. They use other people's money to give loans and this and that and whatever. And I'm like, well, since when did they start selling these other sort of options? You know, I didn't even know that banks had this degree of latitude. You know,
that the limits on that in Canada. Canada didn't have too much trouble for banks in 2008. It's part of deregulation. So all this funky sort of stuff started to take off under Reagan. Got worse under Bush Senior. Clinton, that's one of the things that I don't entirely believe in it, but he deregulated the running the housing stuff on him and stuff.
Yeah, but it just doesn't even make sense to me. Like Ryan Gosling's character in this, he's explaining to Steve Welch and his buddies that, look, the house is on fire, and I'm offering to sell you insurance for this house. You know, basically, like, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you take it?
In AIG, I
but
think insured, it was almost went kaput in 2008 because of all the stuff that's going. So
yeah, but I just didn't think that banks would sell insurance, essentially.
I don't think they should be allowed.
It doesn't make sense to me. So, anyway, so I'm looking at this at the end and I'm like, well, I'm thinking, how in the world did Michael Burry, it's presented in this show as, well, why wouldn't the bank take his money? Because they just believe he's throwing it away, right? But I'm looking at this like, well, he somehow has control over the bank so that they will sell him a gamble on a product or whatever that they're making up just for him. So he has control, he's getting the product designed to be sold to him by the bank. And to me, that seems fishy. So at the end, when they're saying that the FBI was questioning him and stuff, I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't they?
why not look at the bank?
But yeah, look at them too, definitely. But look at him. Why wouldn't they look at him? I mean, in this movie, he's shown as somebody who's smarter than the banks and less corrupt or not corrupt at all, just, an opportunist, right? But I'm looking at it and going, no, there's something fishy there too. How is he able to exert this much power over the bank? And yeah, they present it in a way that you're like, well, yeah, they want to take his money. Whatever. They think he's throwing it away. Maybe. But at the end, Steve Carell's character is saying, no, they knew this was going to happen all along. They knew that the public would bail them out. Because in the end, it's the working man, the taxpayer, who's getting ripped off. Time and time again, they're the ones who are getting ripped off. So, and I think he's right. So, if you look at it that way, if you look at it his way, then maybe Michael Burry isn't such an innocent opportunist, right? But that's something to think about. Good to watch these shows, because it's very well done.
So, the thing about so many people dying for every 1%, I think 40%.
Yeah.
I've noticed the pattern in the military. I've noticed that when unemployment went up, life expectancy went down. There's a little bit of a delay, but you can see it clearly in the people. Become Eisenhower at a recession, life expectancy went down, so it actually costs a lot. And so for the public and all of you that are high inflation, the recent rating, high inflation, raising interest rates, increases in unemployment. It goes that way. And so what they're saying is, we'll save people, the people who suffer from high inflation, are people who've got savings. They're not people who are and you. The people who've got savings are rich people. So what they're doing, the Republicans have been raising interest rates and increasing unemployment in the debt rate, just to save a few shekels or a few pennies for
In their self-employed portfolio. Yeah.
It's going to use the word shekels for some people.
Yeah. I know.
That's what they do.
No, yeah. But change is not that way. So, and that's something to think about too. There's a lot of working poor who don't realize that. I remember when they were raising the interest rates here to fight inflation, and people who were standing in line at the Salvation Army to get food with me, they were like, yeah, they've got to do this, because, boy, a pomegranate costs $3 now instead of $1 or whatever. And, I mean, we're standing in the line, I'm thinking, waiting to get free food. If the food's too expensive, it comes to us, so we're going to benefit, so that's one thing. But I just said to one woman, I said, you have millions of dollars in the bank account or something? Like, this isn't going to help you. But people don't understand it. And people need to. Their life depends on it. Cafe Society. This one is the Woody Allen show where the uncle in Hollywood who's dating a younger woman who ends up being interested in his nephew and blah, 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 blah. It's not good. I don't know, how does it go? Dare to Dream. I thought it was interesting that The Secret, they're now making movies, and this is Dove approved, so this is kind of, I guess, a Christian sort of thing. But I enjoyed it. Katie Holmes and some guy named Josh Lucas. And it's good to try to count your blessings. If you get stuck thinking about all the stressful things in your life, it really, there's a lot of things that can drag a person down every day. But, there's a lot of things that can pick you up too. So, you might have some down days, but there's always, you might have some pretty flowers around, or some birds singing, whatever.
Some pretty dogs.
Try to think of that, and maybe your days will go better. So, anyway, now James is going to talk quite a lot about ancient female rulers, women who ruled the world. 3,500. No, that's okay. I can do these tomorrow if you don't get to them. So 3,500 years ago.
So, say what you thought of it?
Well, this is a 50-minute DVD, and it's called One Day University. And you can see the lecture theater is full of senior citizens. There's a lot of people, gray hair or white hair, sitting in the seats, and people seem to be enjoying listening to this woman speak. And so she's talking about things, and sometimes I don't know a lot about the history, but when she just fluffed past, I mean, she's going back to women who ruled the world a long time ago. So when she fluffed past Queen Elizabeth, because we were talking about Queen Elizabeth yesterday, and then James had talked about the woman that she's focusing on here.
I took it, or as I call it, I kept it, and she said, it's probably more clear.
Okay. But then I thought, well, that's interesting, because I just picked this up from the library yesterday, and when I saw it, I was like, huh, we were just talking about this. So I put it on, and I expected more from it, honestly. When she was fluffing past Elizabeth, she didn't seem to, I mean, didn't everybody think Elizabeth I was awesome? Reading about her, I think she's awesome, and I'm like, ho, ho, ho. I mean, how did she manage to maintain power in, especially against Spain, like, wild. So she was awesome. And anyway, so I'm watching this, and I don't like that she's pretty much fluffed past that, and I don't like her analysis of certain things, like, there was one thing she was talking about women holding a grudge longer than men, and this and that, and she was talking about
kind of scientific proven.
Well, she tried to give an explanation for, that would be because of, going back to like hunter-gatherer times and this and that and whatever, and I just didn't buy her explanation, and I thought, why would she be so sure about that explanation anyway? I mean, how can anybody seem so sure about anyway, you can't know. So,
back then,
yeah.
I think personalities have changed a lot, and people have to live together and can't hold grudges the way they used to.
So anyway, so I didn't like that, and then I got to thinking, she has this idea. It seems like she has a thesis that's basically, this 15-minute DVD was like her presenting an essay. And her thesis is that people don't like women holding power, and they're only given power or allowed to have power in times of crisis and this and that. But James is going to talk about it. James will talk about it way better than I will.
One of the things people say is that the women leaders just demonize or demonize. I'm going, well, I think in the industry, it's in Elizabeth I. I'm not quite your years, but
I know. Yeah.
Catherine the Great, I think, in the Russian tradition is not in the adored. We just talked about it. A couple of days ago, yesterday.
And it might not fit your thesis, but it happens to be true.
Yeah,
and so if it doesn't fit your thesis, well, I guess you're wrong. Move on.
Margaret Thatcher,
No, go ahead.
Margaret Thatcher is much demonized by the left wing, presumably people like her, but she's much adored by a lot of you. Even like our right wing people, globalists, all like this. So she's flashed Margaret Thatcher's picture. Hillary Clinton is much demonized by right wingers, but some people, and a lot of left wingers too, some people think she's okay, and more people in the United States in 2015 thought she was better than Donald Trump, so this is my thankful credit for it.
So at 10 minutes into the DVD, he said that Egypt allowed more women power than any place else in the world, and James said BS.
Yeah, I'll say it again, BS.
In the space of 2,000 years, they had 4 queens.
Well,
in the
she
Neo-Assyrian
dug up one that really wasn't the Baron Ray or something like that. She never declared herself king. She was a regent for a young boy. She was been the titular king. She was made a king apparently in his day. And that was like, they counted 3,000 BC roughly, first dynasty. They got that part of the system a little bit too early, maybe 300 years too early, but let's say 2,700 BC. Okay?
And so then you said in the Neo-Assyrian Empire, which lasted 300 years, they had 1 queen. For Israel, Judah history, 950 to 550 BC, they had 1 queen. She's not getting stats.
One queen, yeah.
And James says, like, she was talking about how
Whereas I'm giving you stats
Egypt wasn't invaded and it was protected by or whatever. James said Egypt was invaded several times.
Many
It was taken over by black folk in 700 BC.
Roughly 700 BC, 709 BC, by a guy called, they don't know how to read his name, and he's one of the troubles with Egyptology. They used to repeat which means the life, and then they go to peace. Okay, they're going around calling it, hey, peace, King Peace. I think it would be, they probably call it the life.
But then you're going to have to
read
it.
Like that symbol, right? It's a symbol or something like that.
And James has a lot of things talked about.